everyone, and welcome to Only in San Jose, a podcast about demystifying and democratizing the process of civic participation only in San Jose. My name is Alina Yin, and I will be your host. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy that the Charter Review Commission came up with this proposal and that, it will be discussed on Monday at the April 11th meeting. And in preparation for this, I wanted to interview somebody about AI. And though this proposal talks a lot about different types of things, I know that there is a lot of thoughts and stories out there about AI and what is possible for AI. And so I reached out to an expert, and I'm really happy to have them join us on this episode. And this conversation, it was a lot of fun and also a very important topic. I know that this topic can be hard to navigate, find resources on, and so I really hope that you find the information helpful. Before we get into that, I'm going to go over the recommendation. If you want to skip to around the 10-minute mark to the interview, please feel free to do so. So the recommendation is asking to alter appointments to the City of San Jose Smart City Advisory Board and the Innovation and Technology Advisory Board, with the goal of strengthening community input on the effects and consequences of technological change. The Commission encourages the Council to expand the size and breadth of its membership on the Smart City Advisory Board and the Innovation and Technology Advisory Board. The exact number of appointed members should be determined by the City Council after consultation with the San Jose's Office of Racial Equity and community, academic experts, and industry stakeholders. Board membership should be focused on expanding the range of perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences of appointees. New members might include representatives from the city's different council districts, neighborhood associations, academic experts, and/or representatives of nonprofit organizations and civic organizations with extensive experience working with San Jose's diverse population and communities. This recommendation was passed on Thursday, November 18th, 2021, with a unanimous yes vote with one person absent. Now, why is this particular change being recommended? As part of the Smart City vision, San Jose has created two advisory boards, the Smart City Advisory Board and the Innovation and Technology Advisory Board. The Smart City Advisory Board aims to obtain expert input from industry thought leaders experienced at creating and deploying innovative technology solutions to solve 21st century problems. The Innovation and Technology Advisory Board is designed to tap the rich expertise of our community in shaping the strategic technology direction of the city. Now, while technological advancement, including advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, carry the promise of bringing innovation and efficiency to city governance, they also stand to intersect with long-standing economic and social issues and challenges. For example, new software and internet-based technologies are likely to reshape the future of work. This includes both the type of work available to city residents, but also where future work is done, what this means for the future of job growth and opportunities, city tax revenues, economic opportunities, service delivery, individual privacy, and social and economic inequality are important considerations. And the tech innovation, including AI, is likely to also affect core city functions, including, we've already kind of heard about policing and public safety, record keeping, transportation, among others. And this change is also likely to alter how residents interact with political leaders and their representatives in the democratic process. Tech change is synonymous with the Smart City vision and is likely to affect San Jose's diverse population in very different and unpredictable ways. This is already recognized by city leaders, and San Jose has already developed a digital inclusion and broadband strategy. Yet, currently, the Smart City and Innovation and Technology Advisory Board members are almost universally drawn from technology industry, meaning there are no residents on this board and it's all tech industry representatives. There's no requirement that the composition of the board members include community representatives from the city of different council districts, neighborhood associations, academic representatives, or social service providers, or civic organizations who may bring different, often overlooked perspectives regarding the benefits and costs of technology and what it means for city governance and community life. Now, racial and ethnic minorities, residents with lower socioeconomic status and traditionally underserved neighborhoods are less likely to experience the full benefits of technological advancement. This has been seen most recently with the inequitable expansion of the broadband technologies with urban spaces. These same groups are more likely to experience negative consequences from the tech change. This has particularly been true in the labor market, and increasing both the number and diversity of perspectives on these boards will actually strengthen community representation and hopefully elevate the concerns among people and groups who benefit the least or who are harmed the most by these technological changes. It will improve the chances that new technologies are deployed in the city in a manner that is consistent with the goals and values of the entire community. In the area, cities like San Ramon and Petaluma have innovative technology boards that include members of the community who are independent of the tech industry. The City of Oakland has developed a privacy advisory commission to provide advice on cities' purchase of surveillance equipment and data storage. That's pretty brilliant. I think we should do that. And San Jose residents who are directly or indirectly affected by technology change would benefit from this change because, first, minimal costs it would impose on the city council to expand the membership, and council members would need to spend some time researching and consulting on these issues. So that's the summary of the report, and they do go over some of the arguments. Well, there's one main argument against this proposal that was listed here, and it says issues surrounding technology and technological change can be technical and complex. As a result, some may argue that a significant degree of expertise is needed to knowledgeably engage on technology-related issues. Discussions and policy recommendations should be reserved for people representatives from the tech sector with a deep familiarity of the industry and how new technologies are developed and deployed. There's no answer to that argument, but I would say that just because I, for example, don't know how to make a laptop and all of the components that are in there, as a person who uses laptop for many years, I can tell you that it was probably not the best design, knowing that you're working from a desk and your head is tilted and you're looking down all day. And there has been now numerous studies and health detriments, and they invented a solution called a laptop stand and sold it to us. And so now that's what I have. But that is valuable experience that needs to be at the table, I would argue, because the people using this technology, if we are harmed by it, whether immediately or over time, as we learn more about the effects of these technologies, if we're not at the table, then we're going to be constantly overlooked, and things that harm us are going to keep getting worse. And by the way, forgot to mention that this is not a charter change. This is a policy recommendation. So luckily, being a policy recommendation, it can be approved by council by majority vote, and then it's done. Just like that. And now for our guest. Masheika Allgood is a AI ethicist and the founder of AllAI Consulting. It is a platform for providing AI education across various industries to people with non-tech and non-AI backgrounds. They are also a member of the Board of Foundation for Best Practices in Machine Learning, and there are going to be resource links in the show notes, and I really hope that you enjoy this conversation. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. And if you could please introduce yourself and, some hobbies and passions that have kept you grounded during work in the pandemic times that we're in.
So my name is Masheika Allgood. I am the founder of AllAI Consulting LLC. It is an AI education platform for non-techies. So our goal is to create AI literacy, digital literacy, specifically AI literacy, amongst professionals who are not techies. So education, healthcare, legal, things of that nature. What has kept me sane during the pandemic? Speculative fiction by Black women. So yes, huge fan of that. I got a stack of books that I keep. Favorite book right now is Binti. Uh, Awesomeness. You should check it out. Um, Star Trek Discovery.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
black girl who's running Star Trek, which never in my lifetime. So freaking awesome, and it's a legit good story. Oh, it's all the things. Um, my wife had me buy Animal Crossing, and early in the pandemic, that kept her sane, which kept me sane. So, and then just spending more time outside once the smoke cleared, trying to walk around in nature a bit, deep breaths, sun on your back. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and being more gentle with myself. If my brain is not capable, not forcing it.
Hmm.
Uh, But my passion during the pandemic was largely AI. Like I left
Hmm.
my job right at the beginning of the pandemic to focus on AI and AI ethics. And so taking courses, reading articles, posting articles on LinkedIn, massive on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
That's what I did during the majority of the pandemic. And it was my creative outlet and kept me sane.
Oh, that is. I'm gonna check out those articles. I know I've checked out definitely some of your classes that you have on your website, and I found them very approachable. And just backtracking a little bit to the books, are you a Octavia Butler fan?
How could I, did I not say Black woman
You didn't
speculative
say
fiction?
it.
Yes, I started with her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into Nydia Okorafor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
That's what
haven't
been to
heard.
me.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
have to look into those.
And then I'm in uh Jemison. I can't remember her first name right now. But she also writes uh she also writes speculative fiction, and she writes like trilogies. I like trilogies because I read
Mm-hmm.
pretty fast. N.K. Jemisin, that's her name. I read
Okay.
really fast, and so I need volume.
Mm-hmm.
And so she writes volume, and I do like Okorafor's writing style better. But
Mm-hmm.
Jemison, she's out there like Octavia Butler's out there. Like they do some
Okay.
things. They tell some stories. But yeah, I spent a lot of time over the break just reading and immersing myself in a world that didn't have the issues that we have and had
Yeah.
different issues, but
Mm-hmm.
seeing people work through them kind of gives you hope of us working through ours in a weird
Yeah.
way. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what, fiction, especially I think like sci-fi speculative fiction is part of how we dream of the future.
Hmm.
And so it's important that we have diverse and out there dreams because who knows what the future will hold. I finished reading recently Lost Dreamer by Liz Huerta. It's her
Oh,
first book, and I would describe it as like I think in the book in the back cover it says Mesoamerican indigenous sci-fi. And it's really
Okay.
good. And there were
Okay.
things like, oh, I see how you're doing your water system in here. Like,
Right? No, that stuff matters. I mean,
yeah.
these are a lot of the innovations that we have in tech come from sci-fi. People had a cool idea of something, somebody read it growing up and was like, I think I can make that happen, and
Hmm.
made it happen. Like, so
Yeah.
I think, we go to sci-fi for innovation a lot of times. So, okay,
Hmm.
we're gonna have to exchange
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's like a vision board, It keeps us
No, that's
over
true.
there.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay, so you started talking a little bit about Ally. Why don't you tell us a bit more about, Ally? And I know that you're also a member of the Black Leaders Kitchen Cabinet. And yeah.
Yeah, so Ally was born out of me just harassing people on LinkedIn and wanting not to look like a stalker. So I was like, I should probably start a company so that I have some credibility. So it was just kind of a shell to start. I paid the taxes, but it was a shell. to start. And I just didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. And then I started talking to some people in education and was like, people are telling them they need to teach kids about AI, but if they don't understand AI, how are they supposed to
Mhm.
teach AI? And so that was the initial focus. But it's hard to get into education. They have a lot more. It's more difficult to do something really new
Mhm.
unless you have a PhD in education. So
Mm.
I have a lot of degrees, but not
Mhm.
that particular one. So I was like, well, who else needs this knowledge? Well, lawyers. Duh,
Mhm.
you're a lawyer. Like, why not tell lawyers? So I was like, okay, let me revamp and let me start with legal education. And so
Mhm.
I put out a CLE earlier this year for lawyers as part of a series. I'm revamping that. It was like a MVP. I'm revamping
Mhm.
that, putting it out again this summer and along with other courses. And so the idea of Ally is to create um, kind of foundational, accessible AI courses across a variety of industries. So we'll have courses for lawyers, courses for educators, courses for healthcare providers, and basically explaining why this is important to you. The critical or pivotal foundational things you need to understand about the tech so that you can
Mhm.
make decisions, legitimate decisions about whether you need it, whether you should use it, what you should create around it to buffer it, and things
Mhm.
of that nature. And so that's the goal of Ally. And in that vein, I do a lot of speaking. And a friend of mine told me about Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet. I was showing to things for a while, and I was like, hey, I want to give a little short talk. And they were like, can we get to it later? I was like, nah, we need to get to this now. And they gave me a platform. They let me
Mhm.
speak. And out of that came this working group on tech advocacy and AI and digital and privacy. And so we are just kind of getting started with that. But the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet is a group of leaders across the Bay Area and just kind of meet and talk about different things that they're doing in their areas and try to work together for positive change for society. And
Mhm.
so this will be one of the things that that group will kind of come together on and work with other groups to push us in a more positive direction around AI in the Bay Area.
Okay. Very cool. And is this group, I'm assuming, is like it's open for other people who are interested in it?
It is completely open. There's no technical membership. Like you show
Mhm.
up, you involve yourself, you don't show up, you don't involve yourself. Like it's really about, whoever wants to come and serve, come and serve.
Mhm.
So it's Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet of Silicon Valley. They like that
Mhm.
Silicon Valley part. I leave it out sometimes. But it's really the whole Bay. And
Mhm.
so there's no fees or anything. It's really about, do you want to come and be a part of this? Then please feel free, but there's no pressure.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely share how to get in touch in our show notes. So, can you share a little bit about AI for first-time listeners on the topic? Like, what is it, and why is it really important in the context of how you're approaching it in law and with professionals, but also with everyday residents and citizens?
So, artificial intelligence is not intelligent and not completely artificial. So, basically, we've taught computers to do some of the things that brains can do. So, one of the things that we do really well is kind of like, or not quite as well as computers because our brains don't, well, we can't take in as much data and move as quickly,
Hmm.
is taking in data, figuring out a pattern in that data. So that's 90% of the AI that you'll see out in the world. That's
Hmm.
what it's doing. It is gathering a lot of data and then looking through that data to understand patterns. So we will take a data set, say, of tweets, right?
Hmm.
And we'll say, these are positive tweets, these are negative tweets, these are sad tweets, these are happy tweets. And humans will go through and label all the tweets, and then we'll
Hmm.
feed it into the AI system, and the AI system will learn, okay, this is these are the patterns that make a positive tweet. These are the patterns that make a negative tweet, right? And then we'll say, okay, now go through and flag all the positive, negative, whatever tweets. And it'll say, okay, and it'll go through and it'll look at each tweet and it'll look at its pattern. And if it's close to the same pattern, then it'll flag it. And if it's not as close to the same pattern, it's not quite as sure, right? So that's what's happening when you are looking on social media and they're supposed to be taking off hate speech and things of that nature, is
Mm-hmm.
it's just looking for patterns. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing when they use AI to determine who should get or who committed fraud in their social or in their unemployment benefits. So in California, when 1 million people got thrown off of unemployment last year,
Mm-hmm.
you had an AI system that was looking for patterns of fraud, right? And based on
Mm-hmm.
its patterns, it determined all these people are likely fraudulent, throw them off,
Mm-hmm.
right? The problem with AI is when it determines those patterns, it is locked to that data set, that initial data set you trained it where you said, this is positive, this is negative. So if that data set didn't include this particular kind of behavior, then the AI doesn't know it. It's never seen it. It can't, unlike humans, we can take an idea and then extrapolate across things. It's creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Systems don't have creativity. It's an A B match, right? This is A,
Mm-hmm.
this is B. Are you matching this or matching that? So if I've got something that's not A and not B, it's a coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a fundamental problem with AI that is driving all the issues that we see. The data has to basically mirror the world that we live in as it changes in order for the AI to keep up with what's going on in the world. So when you hear about, AI and policing, you feed it data of what arrest records, where you've sent the police before, where there's been tagging, where there's been truancy, which are things that have been called out by San Jose and the smart policing. Um, and so then it says, and then you say, where is there going to be crime? Where there was crime before. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to say, oh, these are the factors of crime, and based on these, independent factors,
Mm-hmm.
crime can occur anywhere. No, you have flagged these hotspots already, and so it's just going to reflag those hotspots because there's a high degree of confidence that the place where someone got robbed is probably a place where people get robbed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when the data is skewed in some way, then the AI is going to be skewed in the same way. So for regular people, it comes down to if you are not well represented in a data set, you're probably going to get screwed. If there's not a lot of data about you or your people that makes it into the data set, then the AI has no idea what to do with you. If the data set is misrepresentative of you and your people, then the AI will misrepresent you. And that's what we saw with the Compass algorithm that was saying they were using it to say, well, who should spend more time in jail? Well, Black people tend to get longer sentences. Black
Mm-hmm.
and Hispanic people tend to get longer sentences. We tend to be punished at a much higher rate. And so when the system is looking, it's going to follow those same patterns. And so when you're in a situation where the data is against you,
Mm-hmm.
AI is not going to make things fair. It can't. And when people say they're going to de-bias the data, we don't even understand the depth of the levels of bias in our data. There was
Mm-hmm.
a I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling. This is my
No, no,
my
no.
thing.
I'm loving it.
There was a research a study that was done this summer. I think it was Georgia Tech, or someone from Georgia Tech told me about it. So I think
Mm-hmm.
she was the main professor on the study. And they looked at X-ray images, so an X-ray of body parts, internal
Mm-hmm.
body parts, and they stripped it of like the race. So they taught an X-ray about race or an AI about race. They stripped the X-rays of race, and then they made the X-rays so degraded, like the images, that it just looked like a gray blob. Like you can't
Mm.
even tell it's an X-ray in the image.
Yeah.
The AI, with high confidence, could tell the race of the person who the X-ray was taken at
Mm-hmm.
the blob level.
Mm-hmm.
So race is so deeply encoded in our data. We don't know how to pull it out. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can pull out, oh, I won't say race or gender, right?
Yeah.
But if you went to an HBCU or you played women's lacrosse, then it's
Mm-hmm.
still going to know your race and gender, right? So when we try
Yeah.
to debias our algorithms for like looking at your applications, then we find that the AI will just find other ways to find race and gender because those are highly predictive and it wants to score well. So if white men tend to get hired by your company and that's your history, and you
Mm-hmm.
train this AI system on your historical people who have done well at this company, then your AI system is looking for those white men because those are people who do well. So, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take out race. Okay, can I find it some other way? Because I know white men do well at this company. So we don't have the tools to make AI fairer than people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the big marketing speech. Machines can't be racist. Machines
Mm-hmm.
are going to be fairer than people, but the machine is not like appearing whole cloth, out of the ether.
Yeah.
People make it.
Mm-hmm.
Our data feeds it.
Yeah.
So the machine can only be as unbiased and unracist as we are. And if we are already recognizing that people are the problem, then putting people into a machine form doesn't
Mm-hmm.
solve the problem. It just
Yeah.
makes it harder to point at the person who's screwing me over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what really stuck out to me was, the base underlying infrastructure of AI really depends on the data set, like you mentioned,
Yes,
and the people
yes,
going in and flagging, the sad and angry tweets. But, the data set, it doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like they have much context and also, perception, like cultural perception
yeah.
of this is funny, but not to this culture.
Or that
Those
black women are
nuances.
always angry, you know? Like no matter how we fix our
Or we're
face or
always
whatever,
like all
black
women
women
are
are
always
always
nagging.
right.
Every
Yeah,
critique is it's just a nag.
yeah. So when you take that and you're asking people to label, well, they've got their own biases and they're going to label me as angrier than they would label a white woman. And we may
Hmm.
be the same level of angry or not angry at all. But the algorithm is now going to think that basically anything I show in a face that's not a complete smile means I'm pissed off. That
Yeah.
could be problematic if I'm, in a situation where you're using facial recognition to determine if I'm fit, if I have the proper comportment for a job because you're using it for an interview software. Well, if I'm not smiling ear to ear every second, then the AI is going to be knocking me off points for being unhappy and angry when you ask questions. So now I'm not going to get the job because I'm not smiling.
Hmm.
So this is what AI requires when you create an AI system, you're basically telling people you need to behave in the way that the successful people in the data set behaved in
Hmm.
order to be successful. So now I need to change how I present myself as a Black woman to better suit how the AI sees me. How is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Code switching. It's the same with when they used to do some companies I think still do personality tests, and I have personally remembered like acing interviews and going, "Oh, it's great, just one last thing," and then got ghosted.
Just one last thing. Oh my God, she's a psycho killer. Like, I mean, but my life experience is different. There was a product management like VP who gave a speech at an onboarding ceremony that I was in, who said that the role of product management leadership, your managers, is to, basically help you move along this track. And as long as we set our track and set the expectations, it shouldn't matter who your manager is. Everyone should
Hmm.
do the same.
Yeah.
I lost all respect from that man in that moment because
Hmm.
as a white man, that may be your experience. But as a Black woman, it is critical who my boss is. It is critical how they see me, in the world. Do they have a problem with women in general?
Hmm.
Because they really don't have a problem with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, do they
Yes.
do they do they not think Black people work hard? Because I've come across that, and I'm like, dude, I've
Hmm.
got two actually, like you've got 2 degrees, I have four. Like, I don't understand how you telling me that I
Hmm.
need to work harder or I'm not as smart. If it matters who your manager is, but you've got people who refuse to recognize this. And that when that happens in AI,
Hmm.
now I've created a system that enshrines this colorblind, attitude towards
Yeah.
the world that penalizes people who don't meet the criteria. And I don't have anyone to point to. Who do I
Yeah.
I can at least know my manager sucks. But when the
Hmm.
AI system goes through, I don't know
Yeah.
why I got ghosted. I don't even know it was an AI system that did it. And then if I
Mm-hmm.
find out, who do I sue? Because we don't have
Yeah.
laws yet.
Yeah. We do not have the laws yet. We barely have the instruction manuals how to use it.
I mean, or how to understand it on the outside. So I was in a interview and a panel interview, and they asked once again, about the lack of diversity in tech and how
Mm-hmm.
we need to force these tech companies to hire more Black people. And I've been in these tech companies, and you're basically leading us couple of Black people who get in as lambs to the slaughter. It's always going to be brutality. It's always going to
Yeah.
be a negative experience for us. So my
Mm-hmm.
thing was tech is a tool, right? So I think of it as the world is a banquet. Tech is a server coming
Mm-hmm.
around with something they want you to take, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you want chicken or fish, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what tech is. I got all this chicken. You really want the chicken? Do you want the chicken? But they're going like to the tables of medical and government and and education and policing, and they're going to all these tables trying to hawk this doggone chicken. And
Mm-hmm.
all you want to do is hire more Black waiters.
Mm-hmm.
I want more Black people at the tables.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not putting AI and focus on AI in healthcare, sending our students there, sending our young people there, sending them into government, sending them to the area where they can make decisions that affect how this tech is unleashed upon the world?
Mm-hmm.
Because if hospitals don't take the because it's crap, then the tech companies have to go and fix it, right?
Yeah.
If the AMA stands up and says these are the rules, and if you can't meet them, you can't come in. If we've got techies, Black techies in that conversation talking about how algorithms around healthcare are just massively biased in ways that are just
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary, then that changes, what they do at the producer level, right? But we're just like, no, everybody go to the producers, fight, open the doors. No, you work with the people with the power. The people sitting at the tables have the power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So get more people at the tables and then tell them what you want them to serve. I don't like chicken. I
Yeah.
want seafood. I want
Yeah.
fish either. I want crabs because I'm Southern. I want garlic crabs. Can you cook it and sit it at my table? Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to be sitting at the table. But there's such a focus on we need to be in the room to create the algorithms. But if there's no pressure on the sales side, then
Yeah.
what's the point of trying? You're not going to fight it from within. They need to lose contracts to make changes. They need to
Mm-hmm.
not be able to make money to make changes. So the
Yeah.
internal focus on changing things from the inside, there's a very steep ceiling to that. Whereas if
Yeah.
we own all the tables, they're going to go and fix their shit in order to make money from us. So
Mm-hmm.
I think our focus is off on that.
Yeah. And I was thinking more about your X-ray story and how the colorblind approach in thinking that'll just solve everything. But clearly, there are other labels associated with your demographic that are way more insidious, but also like really spread, like hairline, little fractures everywhere, and not acknowledging that those other labels, that is also kind of a requirement. Like, if you want to hire more Black women, or a person of color, but the labels and standards of getting to that position hasn't been changed to reflect the lived experience of people of color, it's impossible for them to meet, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah, and that's been an argument within HR for some time, which is you need to start revamping how you put these jobs out there because, oh, you need a bachelor. My first job in tech, they were like, oh, you need to know how to code. I didn't code. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
code. We were nowhere near code. We were looking at like Google websites. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
code, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
a way to minimize how many people can apply, right? And
Yeah.
so we've been running that game for a long time. And so I'm not saying it's always, well, we want qualified people. And that's the spin. Well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want less qualified people. Well, coding didn't make me any more qualified for that job. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what it comes down to, is you want qualifications for qualification's sake. And at that point, you're just shutting people out.
Mm-hmm.
If the qualifications are tied to success in the job, they're legitimate. And that's something you can focus on.
Yeah.
And if they are tied to success in the job, chances are they're more neutral than the stuff that you're asking for. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the qualifications are just basically status. You know, you
Yeah.
need to have gone to this kind of school, you need to have, taken unpaid internships, which who can do that when you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to, first
Yeah.
generation, even second generation college student, like who can just not, so these are all, you know, non-color listed signals of who you need to be, and where your life needs to have gone, the experiences you need to have had in
Mm-hmm.
order to get this job. But is any of that tied to successful, you know, to your success in the job? And
Mm-hmm.
currently, most of the time, it's not. And so, bringing in an AI system to codify a job system that's already biased, and then
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, but the AI system will fix it. How? It doesn't think independently. How? It learns from what you give it. And everything you're giving it is biased. But you want me to believe on the other end that it's going to be okay, because 2 + 2 = 5 when tech
Yeah.
money's involved.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Especially after I watched a bunch of the WeWork documentaries, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I see it. Like, you didn't see this coming. Like
Theranos. Nobody ever
that
saw the
too.
tech. Nobody ever talked to the engineers. Like
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, if you're not speaking to a product manager and you're
Mm-hmm.
getting ready to make a big tech buy, you might as well flush that money, because
Yeah.
marketing does what marketing does, but marketing should
Yeah.
get you to the door. You need to
Mm-hmm.
talk to the people who have the knowledge in order to spend that kind of cash. And a lot of people just don't do it. They take it off of, well, this person's like me, so they wouldn't lie to me. Well,
Yeah.
if that was the case, there'd be no con game. Like,
Yeah.
like if I had to only con people who were fundamentally different than me, then I would lose every time. You con the people who are most similar to you, who make you
Mm-hmm.
feel most comfortable. That's the nature of the game. So yeah, you want to believe in people, and I get that, but this is business. You need
Mm-hmm.
receipts. I need receipts everywhere I go as a Black woman. But
Yeah.
apparently there are people in the world who don't need receipts. And some
Yeah.
of them take advantage of that to, like, great devastation to the people who have given them. But the problem is, then those people turn around, they're not trusting, but they'll not trust Black people now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that
We get
mistrust is like,
the repercussions of those
yeah.
failed.
It's like I got screwed by this person who I thought was very similar to me. Then the people who are very different than me, oh my God, they must be monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Just not learning, or learning the wrong lessons.
Yeah. It's my qualifications. I have to suss out my qualifications because it doesn't look the same.
Hmm.
So, with the data sets being flawed, very flawed and biased, what have you
Human.
seen?
The data sets are
Human, yeah.
human.
It's a human
Yes.
error. It is a human error. And so part of that antidote is expanding, would you say, is expanding definitely the number of people at that table and engaging data differently? Or what have you thought about or kind of seen in the practice of AI ethics, and how do we make it more less dangerous and harmful for the community?
Well, I'm in a it seems to be growing number of voices that just say, don't use AI for certain things. Just don't. We don't know enough. We know enough to know that it's dangerous. And at this point, just don't use it for certain applications. Right? I am heavily in that camp. I am a get in a room, figure out where you want to be, brainstorm as many solutions. 80% of them will not be AI. Right? And then figure out what's most feasible. If AI is most feasible, then understand you're going to have to do some things to create some buffers around it, and that it's not directly making decisions. It can be queried, not just, what it made its decisions on, but why. So there's transparency and explainability. Um, I think there's another word in there that I looked up. There was an article that I found really interesting. I'll share it with you afterwards. But it's the idea that it's not sufficient for the AI to tell you what it it made its decision off of, it also has to be able to tell you why it made that decision. Because there's people just want transparency, and it's like, well, I made this decision because the weighting was this. Oh, okay. Like that doesn't mean anything in real life. Like I need the same kind of explanation that I would want from a person. I made this decision because people in this bracket have a higher risk of failure than people in this bracket, and I determined that by this pattern, kind of thing, right? Um, but that's really hard to do, and it's expensive to do, and AI is very expensive. And we don't really talk a lot about what it costs us in breathable air. You know, AI, deep learning specifically, requires a lot of compute power. That's big, huge data centers running around the clock all the time, all the time. Um, these data centers are running on gas. That's CO2 emissions, like every day. And right now, the EPA doesn't regulate data centers. And so we don't honestly know how much CO2 is emitted by AI. And so when you're looking at something like a self-driving car, self-driving cars are basically embedded Internet of Things, basically embedded and just Internet of Things, right? So they are running all the time, collecting data, and then sending it back, like all day, sending it back, right? Think of how many Teslas are out on the road right now. Every single Tesla sending back data to data centers on a regular basis. That data comes into the data center, they have to label it, they have to retrain the AI based on it, and then send updates back. This is a continuous process. So, like, it takes a crap ton of energy to train an initial AI system, but that's a fraction of what it costs to maintain it over time. AI is a continuously learning system, and it sends back massive amounts of data to be relabeled, retrained, resent back out in the field. This is a continuous process. Well, that's CO2 emitted at every single stage of that process. And we're not talking about what that means in terms of environmental impact. And we know that minority communities are getting shafted when it comes to environmental impact. So you're seeing these data centers pop up in neighborhoods, that are underserved, right? That are poor, that are minority. Um, but that may change because Bitcoin is ballsy. Like they have started going to the beautiful, pristine lakes in like northern New York, like places where, just people make paintings of just beautiful places. They've been going there and setting up Bitcoin mines and like abandoned um, power stations, right? But the amount of water that it intakes every day to cool these data racks, right? The servers is massive, and so it's heating up the water in the lake itself. So the fish start dying, the birds move away, right? There's noise pollution from the whir, all of the servers running 24/7, and not to mention now all of these once shuttered electric stations are now back running. And they're running off of gas and coal. So that's more emissions. So New York has an issue with, are they going to meet their emissions goals if they allow Bitcoin to keep running amok? And what is that doing to society? So you've got people of means and of some lesser means who live in these pristine communities or grew up in them, spent summers in them, and they're like, what the hell? You're destroying, like, you're just sucking the life out of the lake. Who does this? So they're fighting right now in New York. Little small towns are fighting in New York. We will probably get more traction from those fights because they're high profile than people in poorer neighborhoods saying, things were already bad and now they're worse. So, and also we don't have pristine lakes in poor neighborhoods for them to run Bitcoin farms, but they do, have a lot of data centers. So, yeah, I think we have to start talking about what the cost benefit analysis of using AI. We're just throwing it at everything because the tech companies want to make their money. right? We've spent all this money in R&D, we're printing money by the day. And so they're just shoving it into every single situation that they can. And really, AI is more like nuclear. You need to use it sparingly and where it makes sense. And so I think for us, the goal is to figure out what are the best societal benefiting applications of AI, and how can we tailor our usage to best improve society, as, and that will allow us to limit the carbon footprint, to kind of focus in on addressing some of these issues with data and bias. If we just focus on AI as not something to just throw out and, oh, everybody's using AI. If we focus on using it, for its best purposes, then I think we're in a situation where we can kind of, bring down the temperature, control what we're doing, and actually figure out what we can do with this tech in a way that we
Yeah.
just haven't really done.
Wow. So it sounds like, the marketing and PR from these companies it reminds me of the story of plastic. It's
Yes,
going to change everything. We
it
can
did,
use
didn't
it
it?
for
Oh, it
everything.
changed everything. Microplastics in Alaska and in places that have not been touched by human hands have been touched by microplastics. Yeah, yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Which
Mhm.
it's a wonder technology,
Yeah,
but
and
not
I'm
so
hearing
much.
it's both water and air that it
Yes,
impacts. But then also whatever minerals that you need to build these data
yeah,
centers.
and also the things that, so self-driving cars, not not self-driving cars specifically, but the electric cars,
Mhm.
we have to mine different components now in order to create the batteries for them, and
Mhm.
that's destructive mining, and people are now saying, well, we'll just mine it from the ocean floor.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong can go, nothing can go wrong with that, right? And so like
Yeah.
there's this small UN authority that's headquartered in Jamaica. Awesome.
Mhm.
Love if you guys want to call me out to have a speech, just saying. But they are tasked with determining, like, can these companies mine the ocean floor for
Mhm.
these minerals that we're running out of or are harder to get to on Earth? And please,
Yeah.
God, let the answer be no,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
extraction is just, it's not the
Mhm.
way.
As we should be learning and just mountains of data on that it's not the way to go. I mean, I've been reading. I spoke with another person who is a lawyer, and they have been working on providing legal rights to bodies of water and
Mm,
forests and things like that. And there
good
are
work.
even bodies of rights for the moon. And I
Mm,
read like the
yeah,
Declaration of the Rights of the Moon, which I was really blown away because it's so far out of space. It's like so sci-fi to think about that. But then I think about James Cameron's movie Avatar, and I was like, that's
mm,
how it starts.
hmm,
First, it's just we're practicing on the moon, but then
hmm.
once we got Moon and Mars, we're just going to go to every single planet with that same extraction model because we need these things to build our tools.
I wrote a while ago, and I meant to follow up on it. Well, I intend to follow up on it in a book that I at some point will finish. But sci-fi is the dream of the future, right? And
Hmm.
so we have all these movies. Um, Fury and Survivor. I can't remember the name of the movie right now, but we've got all these movies where there's uh this alien body comes, and its goal is to extract resources, from other planets.
Hmm.
Why do we think we're the good guys in that story, when
Yeah, and the way
everything
we
about
other.
how we've set up our society
Hmm.
makes us the extractors? Like, we watch these movies and we always think we're the scrappy good guy fighting the extractor. But when you look at how our society is set up and what we're doing currently, and you see, our plans for the future, and the richest of the rich saying, well, we're just gonna start building spaceships so we can get the fuck out of here when it's blowing up. Like,
Hmm.
when you see that and you look at it holistically, how are we the good guys?
Hmm.
We've been telling ourselves this story the wrong way for
Yeah.
decades. We are always the bad guys in this story.
Hmm.
Like, always. from a societal standpoint, we may individually think that we would make different choices, but we're living in a society that's making these negative choices and we haven't found a way to turn it around.
Yeah.
So we're going to be dragged along in this society to be the bad guys.
Hmm.
That is the life that we are currently choosing.
Unless we get different writers at the table.
I mean, different writers at the table break up the tables. Like
Hmm.
we got a kitchen that only four companies or four head servers are in, right? And so they only want to serve the thing that they have the most of. So this guy's got
Yeah.
chicken, that guy's got fish. So they're just hawking all of that, right? We need other vendors in the kitchen, right?
Hmm.
We need a people who have vegetarian, people who
Hmm.
have, different I like Japanese food. Like my
Hmm.
wife studies Japanese. Uh, they do noodles and seafood, and those are two of my favorite foods. And so it was just a match made in heaven. So yeah, like to have different kinds of foods to be served is step one. And I think
Hmm.
there's a push to that, towards that with this antitrust conversation. But instead of trying to get more Black people into a broken system,
Yeah.
I think break up the system, right? And when there's real competition at that level, you'll see different things will happen in academia because
Hmm.
these same 4 or 5 people are funding all of the AI research and they
Yeah.
only want to fund stuff that is of interest to them. So
Hmm.
now you free up academia to look at different kinds of solutions that people are like, oh, haven't we researched? No, we ain't researching shit except for what
Hmm.
Google pays for. And
Yeah.
Google wants us to research this one thing. And if you don't
Hmm.
research this one thing or you say something's wrong with this one thing, a la Timnit,
Hmm.
then you're out,
Yeah.
right? So I think people don't understand how concentrated the power has been in tech. And we're just
Hmm.
assuming that tech is coming out with the best solutions every day, and they're not. They're coming out with the best solution these couple teams can come up with. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of good solutions that people just can't get funding to do. And
Hmm.
so I think it starts with that. So breaking up that table gets more people in the kitchen and gives us more options, right?
Yeah.
It also requires them to be more innovative. And if they're required to be more innovative, they can't hire the same people with the same credentials all the time. They
Yeah.
will know that they need someone with a different experience because you just keep building the same shit. You got to build something that you would never think of, which means you got to
Yeah.
talk to people you would never talk to. So
Hmm.
I think breaking up big tech will free up a lot of space for
Hmm.
more of us to enter those tables. But until we
Yeah.
get to, the kitchen tables,
Yeah.
I still think we need all the other tables, right? Like I
Hmm.
feel like
Yeah.
let them figure out that kitchen stuff. Let them come and pay me to go in the kitchen. But I
Hmm.
want to be sitting at the table being served. Like
Yeah.
I'm not about this focus of everybody running to the kitchen to be a server. I want to be served. I want you to come and give me what I want. Right. So
Hmm.
I feel like we need to take over, all these, and there's a lot of Black or minorities in general in
Hmm.
healthcare,
Yeah.
in government, in education, not
We're
so much
here.
in law, but we exist heavily in these other spaces, but
Hmm.
we've been basically thrown out of the conversation like, oh, you don't know tech, you can't talk. So
Hmm.
part of what I'm doing is trying to enable people and to empower people to have the right language and the confidence to say, I may not know all the technical details, but I do know your data's messed up. And what are you going to do
Hmm.
about that?
Yeah.
I do know that, this doesn't, tech can't, AI can't do the things that you're saying that it can do.
Hmm.
So can you prove to me what you can do? What is your history? What have you done?
Yeah.
What results have you seen
Hmm.
over a year or 2 years, not 6 months or a lab test? Like
Yeah.
enabling people to have those conversations and be active at the tables that they're sitting at. I feel like that's where we can make the initial push while we wait for government to figure out how to break up the kitchen.
Yeah. What would you say? You had mentioned earlier there's certain things that AI just should not do. And so what is the AI no fly list that government should be aware of?
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If AI should not be the final decision maker or even like close to the final decision maker to determine if I get out of jail or go to jail, if I have to face the police or not, more increasing police or not, if I get money to feed my kids or not, if the police are going to come and take my kids or not. There is a
Mm-hmm.
huge scandal in Denmark, I believe, where they had used an AI system to flag people who might be fraudulent when it came to welfare benefits. But they heavily penalized people just for the AI saying it was suspicious. So the AI didn't make the final decision, but the government workers just basically said, I'm going to target people of dual nationality because they ain't from here, so they cheat, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to target people who are young or whatever other reason, anything that wasn't perfect. They went and clawed back money from these people. Woman got a bill for $100,000 in benefits that
Mm-hmm.
she was supposed to pay back. People
Mm-hmm.
committed suicide. They were taking children from families because you can't pay this money back, so now you're unfit. And so children were placed in foster care, all because an AI system said, well, these people, the pattern indicates that
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to be suspicious than others, right? So
Yeah.
that's why it shouldn't be involved in that decision making process at all.
Mm-hmm.
The right AI is boring AI. AI in the legal system that goes through and looks at what's the likelihood of this type of case getting through the court system at this particular time, or
Mm-hmm.
how could I better or more effectively schedule my judges and my hearings in order to make sure that we're getting max utilization of our courtrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
AI that says this person is more likely to be guilty than that person, because
Mm-hmm.
people default to believe in AI. So, oh,
Yeah.
it didn't make the decision, but it's hard for people to say the machine is wrong because no one wants to look
Mm-hmm.
foolish if the machine was right. So just don't let it
Yeah.
even say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anything that directly affects life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, no. You can't tell me if I should get a loan or not. You can't tell me if I should get if I should be able to move into an apartment or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I should be able to get a job or not, right? Like anything that allows me to live my life should be off limits. And then use AI for automation efficiency, which
Mm-hmm.
is fundamentally what AI is: automated decision making. So let it automate decisions that don't hurt people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the whole concept of AI, as I'm listening to you describe it, is you filter out people, and like these other people are termed bad or not fit. And it just casts them away. It doesn't say like, oh, I wonder why these people struggle so much.
Yeah,
Let's
no.
look into it deeper. It's just like these are the bad apples. And you end up creating more harm, especially when that person just happens to check suspicious, not that they've
Yeah,
actually done anything wrong at all. But then you're perpetuating this really deep harm
yeah,
in the community.
yeah. And that's the problem is people like, oh, but it's fairer than humans. No, it's not. Well, people could have screwed you not at this scale.
Mm-hmm.
An individual person can only do so much harm. An AI system can throw 1 million people off of unemployment in the middle of the winter. The scale of the harm is what's different. And so it's not a one-to-one human versus machine. It
Mm-hmm.
is like thousands of humans versus a machine. It does harm on a scale that's just not possible for a regular person to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to stop considering it like, oh, it's just like if Sally in accounting made decisions. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not, and it never will be. And so I think if we understand the scale, then it makes a lot more sense for us to be a lot more skeptical about
Mm-hmm.
how we use this technology in real life.
Okay. So, wrapping up, and also kind of just my takeaway of what the city of San Jose is working on right now, and they're climate smart, but one of the main things that happened during the charter review is that they wanted to expand resident participation in these bodies that are making decisions and writing laws. And then also there seems to be more thought about the ethics of how we use AI. And there is definitely places where the technology has not developed enough to be able to apply it in this manner that really could impact somebody's life. Yeah.
Agreed. And I think data is a critical thing. Data privacy, who has access to data,
Mm-hmm.
Are we enabling back end surveillance of people without their consent? A smart city collects a lot of data.
Yeah.
Who's going to have access to that and for what purposes?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think the fact that they're opening it up for citizen involvement should have been a no-brainer, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that it's happening. Um, like I little shocked that it wasn't the initial, but okay, we're here now.
Yeah.
But I think it's critical to have people, even if you don't understand yet,
Mm-hmm.
just go to the meetings and hear what they have to say. And if something sounds fishy, make them explain it to you in ways that you can understand. Because honestly, that's the job, right?
Yeah.
It's not,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we've got this cool thing. And, if you don't really understand it, you just don't understand it. We're going to move on. No, it is
Mm-hmm.
their job to make you understand, to say it in a way that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
So stop letting folks off the hook. Stop being worried about looking silly and asking stupid questions. Half the time, the people who are pushing this stuff, they don't understand the tech either. And that's why they get
Yeah.
frustrated when you ask questions, because now they look stupid and they feel
Mm-hmm.
stupid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you keep pushing and you make them make you understand, and you fight for the decisions that are best for your community.
Yeah, because their job is to govern our lives, our
Yes.
lived experience in this city, and they should be able to explain this is how I'm going to govern you. These how the laws apply to you. You can't brush them off just because
No.
there's a language barrier, and there is a language barrier, but that's a whole other issue that we could have also been addressing during this
Yeah.
time. But with more now that people have been participating more and more since George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests in June 2020, there have been a lot of people really interested for the first time in a city council meeting. What is a city
Yeah.
budget? And they're coming in and they are asking a lot of questions. And I can see that tension there. But I'm glad
Suck it
it's
up,
there because
Buttercup.
it
That's your
means,
job.
yeah, that's your job.
Job. I mean, come on, man. Like that's what you signed up for. You can't be mad. People want you to do your job. Like, and making
Yeah.
my job hard. Every other job you have, people make it hard, and you suck it up and deal with it. But when you deal with the public, they just supposed to let you do whatever. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand the impact you have on these people's lives? You can assign a stroke of a pen, and their child can be killed tomorrow. They can
Mm-hmm.
lose their home next week. Like, you have massive power over these people, and you don't feel that you should be agitated. When they have questions to ask, you better suck it up. That's your
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Like, create more documentation, or more people friendly documentation. Bring in consultants
Yeah.
who can help you explain what you're doing. But you can't expect people to take off faith anything that you push from a governmental standpoint, given the situation we're in and this deep distrust between people and institutions right now. You got to put in that extra work. Like, it's not your fault necessarily, but it's generations of governments that have put
Mm-hmm.
people in a position of distrust. And you're in a position now where you're just stuck trying to unwind it. That's the job. That's the
Yeah.
job. So there shouldn't be tension. I can understand being frustrated, but there shouldn't be tension. They have a right to ask these questions, and they have a right for you to answer in a way that they understand. That's the
Mm-hmm.
job.
Yeah. Okay. So, wrap up question. I'm wondering, since we started on sci fi, maybe we can end on a sci fi San Jose or like Bay Area. I don't know, like 5 years in the future. Say everything. So, the big companies are broken up, and now
Mm.
we're like beginning the process of using AI to make our lives easier. What could it look like if we begin to move towards this direction and we stick to making it more equitable and breaking up big companies and things like that?
So I think you'll see job growth,
Mm-hmm.
not just amongst minority candidates, but I think you'll see smaller corporations. It'll feel a lot more like it felt when tech was first getting started in the Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a startup culture, because we see how that's gone a bit toxic,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot smaller and more diversified work. Salaries will probably come to a more reasonable gap between top and bottom, which, I mean, honestly, the people at the bottom, I hope, or at the top, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, you were riding that wave for a long time. You should have put some money to the side. Like, it's
Yeah.
time to share. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that gap will shrink, which will make the ability to have affordability in the city a lot better. If we use AI for some of these boring back end systems,
Mm-hmm.
government will be more efficient in certain ways, which means things will be easier to do and easier to move.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have more time as a government official, to get to some of these harder problems that we've really, really had problem solving, like homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of that will be ameliorated by the change in the wage gap, and so
Mm-hmm.
people will have a bit more ability to pay and not get thrown out of their homes.
Mm-hmm.
But homelessness is just going to be an issue that needs to be addressed because it's been entrenched for some time, and so it's not just
Mm-hmm.
going to go away because the money evens out, right?
Yeah.
But we just don't have the time or the resources or bandwidth to put on that issue. But we'll be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our water management can get better in our sewage management, all that stuff can get better. But water management specifically,
Mm-hmm.
there are some innovations in fire management and
Mm-hmm.
determining fires like at the moment. Um, but within all of that, a heavy focus on data privacy, how data is used. Even if we used AI, in the most positive ways, if we allow that data to get out in the wrong ways, then
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a negative stain on all those efforts. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a positive light for us to move towards. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, right? A lot of stuff has to
Yeah.
happen. And you can be hopeful but cautious because
Mm-hmm.
breaking up big tech, entrenched power doesn't like to go. And so
Mm-hmm.
clearly they're trying to suck as much as they can through the straw before someone pulls the cup away. But they're gonna fight to the bitter end. And so getting from this monopolistic situation into a more um, even market is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a battle. But if we can make that happen, then I think there's a lot of positive changes for the Bay that come from that.
Awesome. That's a good picture. I like that picture.
Let's see if we can write it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and explaining all of the things. I definitely learned so much, and I think a lot of people will take away some of the more basic infrastructures of AI and where it's at, because the content that exists out there makes it seem so much more than it is.
Yeah. I mean, we like to sell ourselves, It's the name of the game, right? Everybody's
Yeah, you got to
everybody's
make the dream kind of seducing.
exactly, man. Like how can you become like the biggest powers in the world if you don't
Hmm.
have a good marketing story? Like that's just the nature of
Yeah,
the game. America's an advertising society. So, I mean, I'm from
yeah.
Florida. People think everywhere is the beach or
Hmm.
Disney World, and I'm like, wow, our marketing is great because Florida is not that. So it's just the nature of American companies. So
Yeah, yeah.
every industry has fallen prey to it, but
Hmm.
I
I'm a
think there's
marketer
hope.
too.
Good for you.
Professionally, I started and I was reading the other day and someone said, I'm in marketing, which is just propaganda. That's what I do. And I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way, but it's true.
It hurts, but it's true. Yeah, but I think the marketing is kind of it's losing its luster as
Hmm.
people start to learn more and more. And so I am hopeful that we will get where we need to be. I think there are significant powers for whatever reason, pushing us in the right direction. Some of them don't have the right reasons in
Yeah.
mind, but do
Hmm.
the right thing for the wrong reason. I'm still giving you partial credit, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're pushing towards the right directions. We just have to understand it's going to be a battle, but if we win it, it's a fair Bay Area for all of us. It's people who had to leave being able to come back and live in the city again. Like it's will never be, there's never a heyday that you can return to, but we can create something new that's our own and that feels more like living instead of surviving.